that is computer system overview. In my textbook, it is chapter 12. I think someone. So basic computer organization, we are going to start from here. What is basic computer organization? First of all, we need to study the logical structure of a computer. Everybody knows that computer is a digital device and it's an electronic device which takes some input, processes the input and gives us some output, and it might also store data somewhere for further processing. Okay, so we will be studying in this about logical structure of a computer, describes how its components are connected to one another, how they affect one another's functioning, and contribute to overall performance of a computer. So this is the basic computer organization. On your screen, you might be able to see over here a block diagram. So this block diagram is a diagram which depicts all the different units in your computer, different parts or different units which function together as a whole group, right? We start with the input unit. Now, what is the input unit? If I ask you, it is the part of a computer which handles all input devices. Can name a few input devices? Firstly, you should understand what are input devices. So all those devices which are used to feed data and instructions to the computer. Feed data and instructions to the computer. That is all those devices which we require to enter data and steps to work with that data into the computer. Those devices are known as input devices. The very primary and basic type of input device is your keyboard.
Yes, ma'am.
Right? So keyboard is the very basic type of input device, and along with this, nowadays, because we are more dependent on our smart devices, that is smartphones and tablets, so the touch screen interface, that is also an input device, a very commonly used input device. Apart from this, we have mouse, we have stylus, okay, light pen,
Joystick.
joystick,
Scanner.
scanner, very good. Can you name a few more? You might have heard about trackball, which is also a type of a mouse, but it requires a very less space. Okay. Then what else do we have? We have scanner, we have already written. Okay.
Mics.
You have mic, very good. Microphone. So I'm just
Microphone.
writing like this. Yes. Anything else?
OMR scanner.
Very good. OMR device, optical mark recognition. That is OMR sheets you get. Normally, these sheets are used for competitive examinations. So, OMR sheets, OCR, optical character recognition. That is, you just use a stylus and you draw a character, and it will automatically be converted into a digital text. So, that is optical character reader or recognizer. Webcam, very good. Anything else? In banks, we use MICR device, magnetic ink character recognition device, which is used for processing bank checks. Okay, so all these devices, we will see it in a GIF, right? So these all are input devices, and there is an endless list of input devices which are available in the market, which are used to feed information and data to the computer. What do we need to feed to the computer? Data and instructions. Now, when I say data and instructions, instructions basically refer to the computer program. Okay. I want the computer to do some task, right? On hand. Okay. The analogy was, uh, suppose I'm a very famous baker. Okay. Or I'll just take the case of Ansia. Ansia is a famous baker. Okay. So she is the one who is very busy throughout the day. So she wants an apprentice, she wants an assistant to assist her with her work. Now, what she does is doesn't want to spend a lot of money, because if she wants to hire a very professional and experienced person, she would have to pay more to the person. So she hires a very, a dumb type of a person who will, and she thinks that, okay, I'll give him clear instructions and he would do as I say. So now the person whom she hired, that person is a kind of person who is not very familiar with things, but once he learns something, once he learns how to do something, he doesn't commit mistakes. Similar to what our computer does. Once you tell the computer to do something, it will do it at a very high speed and accurately without committing mistakes. So now the thing is, she has to instruct her assistant, her newly recruited assistant, about what to do at every step. Like she says, okay, pour some butter into the flour. Okay, put some butter into the flour. So he says that, okay, where do I find the butter? So she'll have to instruct him, the butter is kept in the fridge, go and get it from there. Where is the fridge? He'll ask. Then she'll say, the fridge is in the kitchen. So so they are in the kitchen only, but it is placed around some 10 steps from where they are standing, right? So she'll have to instruct it. What happened is that she has to instruct her assistant to walk exactly 10 steps backwards, to reach the fridge, open the fridge, take out that yellow colored packet from the fridge, and bring it back here, open this open the packet and drop the butter brick into the flour, that is, which is in the bowl. So it is like she has to instruct him about each and every step, but once he learns, he will be doing it again and again without getting tired and without committing any mistake. So same is the case with your computer. You want your computer to do some work for you, you have to give clear instructions to it, and once the instructions are given, your computer can do it flawlessly, right? So data and instructions in the form of program are fed into the computer to do some work. And not only that, you also use the input device to enter certain commands. This is just a recapitulation of what you have studied last time. Okay, I am enabling the mic for everyone now because it will be kind of interactive today. Okay, next is your output device. Now, all output devices, what are output devices used for? Can anyone tell me quickly? Tell me, these are just basic things. Output devices.
To give the result of the processing out.
Yes, to give the result of processing data. Data is processed using instructions. You will not only be required to give the data, but also the clear instructions on how to work on the data. It's similar to like you not only tell the assistant what you want, but also you need to tell the assistant how to do the work. Okay, so that is what you need to do. You also need to give the instructions. So the computer will be processing the data using the instructions and giving you the result. Some commonly used output devices, the very commonly used one is your monitor, your touch screen.
Ma'am, printer.
Yes, one second, I'm coming to that. The touch screen interface on your mobile phones, it acts as your input device also and your output device also. If you are tapping something, typing something, selecting any command, or dragging and dropping, that means, or zooming in or zooming out. So that is what it works. At that time, it works as an input device. And when you are seeing something, it works as an output device. Yes?
Ma'am, speaker is also an output.
Yes, speaker is also your output device,
Plotter.
right? Plotter, very good. Plotter is a very large printer, and we forgot the very prominent one, that is a printer. Okay, so printer is a small, it could be a small printer, it could be a little larger printer. Some printers are used for domestic use, okay, which we use, and we could afford it within 5,000 or 7,000 rupees. And some printers are larger printers, which are basically used by those people who have a photocopier shop. They normally require a 3-in-1 device, which will not only scan, but it will also take out photocopies of documents, and also it will print document. Okay, so that is there. And plotter is a huge type of a printer, which is basically used for printing kiosk hoardings and advertisements. Okay, large posters, large maps. Okay, so all these type of things are printed using a plotter, and plotter is quite expensive as compared to printer. If you just search in Google, you might find that the lowest one starts from 95,000 or 90,000, like that. Okay, so plotter is a larger form of a printer. Then along with speaker, I can also keep headphones.
Yes, ma'am.
Right, when I'm using right now, you can see I'm using headphones with an integrated mic. So the mic is acting as the input, and my headphones are acting as the output, through which I can hear your voice. And also we have projector, the one which is installed in our school in every class, the Tata ClassEdge projector. Okay, we don't have a separate monitor there, but projector is the output screen. Right, so all these are output devices which are there, and you can have many more output devices, but input devices are more in number. So output unit and input unit, these two are there. So here these two blocks represent any input device and any output device. Now we come to this larger block over here, central processing unit, and it contains basically two parts, control unit and arithmetic and logic unit. What is the work of the control unit?
Ma'am, it is the brain of the computer.
Very good. It's the brain of the computer, and basically it is the one which handles all the operation. It follows the fetch, decode, and execute cycle, which you will be studying in the next chapter, that is insight into program execution. You have a chapter after this. So in that chapter you will be studying this fetch, decode, and execute cycle. Fetch an instruction from the program, decode it, and execute the instruction, and then move on to the next statement or next instruction in the program. So control unit's task is to, firstly, to do this. Secondly, to coordinate the work of all the parts. Right. So it will be handling tasks like, it will first instruct the input device to take input from the user. Okay. And then it will decide whether to send that input directly to the arithmetic and logic unit, or whether to send it to the memory unit. Okay. Then once the processing is done, it will decide whether to send it to a secondary storage device, or whether to send it directly to the output device. So if something has to be added, if A plus B has to be done, it will be instructing the arithmetic and logic unit for that. If something has to be stored into the hard disk, it will be instructing the memory unit for that. Okay, something has to be displayed, it will instruct the output unit for that. So this is the control unit which controls all the execution, and we have the very important ALU, which is arithmetic and logic unit. So arithmetic and logic unit, you can see there are two parts in this. One is for performing arithmetic operations, like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and one more, that is modulus operation. You can say remainder operation. So these are operators we will be studying when we study about operators in Python. So in short, I'll tell you, this symbol is used for addition, finding out the sum of values. This is for difference. For multiplication, we don't exactly use this symbol. We rather use an asterisk symbol. Asterisk. Okay, this is how it is pronounced. So it's an asterisk symbol which we use for multiplication, and for division we use a forward slash like this, and we have a modulus operator which is denoted by a percentage. Here don't consider this to be a percentage. This is modulus operator. What is the difference? Division operator divides two values and returns the quotient. That is, if I write 10 divided by 2, right? So this will return what? 2 times 10. That is, this is the quotient which is being returned. And if you write 10 modulus 2, it will return the remainder. Understood? So both do the work of dividing the dividend with the divisor, but the result which they return is different. So arithmetic operations are these. Then it performs all types of comparison operations. Like less than, greater than, less than, equal to. Now see, you have studied in maths less than, equal to like this, okay? But when we are dealing with this in terms of programming or computer, you will be writing it like this, because there is no such symbol on the keyboard which looks like this. So that is why we write less than and equal to sign like this. Same way for greater than, equal to also, it is written like this. So less than, greater than, less than equals, greater than equals, equal sign, okay? And for equals, it is represented by a double equal to sign, and not equal to is represented like this. Not equals, within bracket I am writing its mathematical symbol, right? So these are all the comparison operations, and it also has the logic unit which performs, which takes all decisions. All sorts of decisions are taken by the logic unit. If I do this, what will happen? Okay, or if the condition is this, do this. If it's raining, carry an umbrella with you, else just enjoy the weather, right? So depending upon a particular situation, some decision will be taken. So there are numerous such cases, and almost all programs in this world, they require taking decisions. You are playing a game, a role playing game, and in that game you need to open a door. You have a choice of two doors. Okay, one door, if you open, you will be dead. Other door, you can escape. Now if you open door A, suppose behind door A there is an eternal fire going on. When you open the door and enter, you are dead, right? If you open door B, you get an escape route and you escape from there, right? So taking decisions. So all this is done by your ALU. Actual work is done by the arithmetic and logic unit, right? So control unit, decides when to send the data to the arithmetic and logic unit so that it can perform the calculation. And this is what a processor does. When we say data is processed, so that is what a data is dealt with. Either some arithmetic operation will be done on that data, or some comparison operation will be done, or some decision will be taken on that data, right? And then whatever is the result, either it is directly displayed on the output device, or it can be sent to the memory unit, right? Suppose I just typed a letter and I'm using a computer program for that, that is Microsoft Word. I typed a letter, I give a command, print. So it will directly go to which device? Printer, which is an output device, right? But if I think that, okay, I don't have a printer, I will save it as a PDF document and later on I'll get it printed. So I'm saving it somewhere. Where am I saving? Hard disk drive. So where is the control unit guiding it? To the memory unit. Now finally we have the memory unit.
Ma'am,
I'm doubt.
Yes, please ask.
Logic unit is a part of ALU or it is different?
It's a part of ALU, arithmetic and logic unit. That's why we use and in between.
Ma'am, when you showed us the signs of different plus and minus, ma'am, there are two equal to signs are joined together. Ma'am, what does it,
See, there is actually the single equal to sign which is used.
Yes,
The
ma'am.
single equal to sign, it usually denotes assignment. It is an assignment operator, which means a value can be assigned to a variable. Like if I write a equals 5, it means in the memory somewhere. Now we are coming to memory also. In your memory, that is in your RAM, a box will be created. An empty space will be reserved, okay, which will be denoted by this label, that is A. Okay, इसका नाम हमने रख दिया A, and this area will store this value 5. So that means 5 is assigned to this value. 5 is assigned to this variable A. Here 5 is the value and A is the variable. So 5 is assigned to the variable A. So this is an assignment operator. But if I write A double equals 5, which means here I am checking equality, whether A is equal to 5 or not. In the memory, we can see A contains 5. So that means I am trying to check whether this 5 is equal to this 5 or not. Answer you will get is true. And suppose we had 51 here. Then in that case, this condition would have been false. 51 is not equal to 5. So you will get the result false for equal to. So single equal to stands for assignment. Double equal to stands for checking equality between two values which are on either side of it. Got it?
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. So we were discussing about the memory unit. Memory unit consists of two types: primary memory and secondary memory. I'm not asking about primary memory. Tell me how many secondary memory devices do you know about?
ma'am, pen drive.
Hard
Yes.
disk,
The very
CDs.
first foremost is hard disk. Then you have CDs, DVDs, okay, Blu-ray disc. These all come under the category optical drives or optical disk drives, right? Then your pen drive, which can be termed as a USB flash drive, and in short we call it as a PD. Yes, somebody was saying something.
SD cards, ma'am.
Yes, SD card, micro SD card. That is your, also it comes under the category of memory stick. That is your memory card, right? So all these are your examples of secondary storage devices which store data permanently. That is, your data will be stored and it will not be deleted until and unless you want. Okay. So even if there is no electricity, data still remains on the drives. Okay. Other than this, we have the primary memory. Now, what is your primary memory? Now, talking about primary memory, there are two types of it, RAM and ROM. You all know the full form of RAM, random access memory. For memory, I'm using this short abbreviation. Okay, you can also use it from time to time. This is read-only memory. Now, random access memory is a type of memory which is also, it comes under the category of volatile memories. Volatile memory means, you might have heard about in science, volatile substances like camphor.
means it disappears or fades away very quickly.
Fades away very quickly. In like solid directly changes into gas without melting into a liquid first, right? So here volatile means that the moment electricity turns off, whatever is stored in your RAM will get erased. Okay. And also if there is like you shut down the computer, data is erased. You shut down the the electricity goes off, data is erased, right? So this is a volatile memory, but random access memory is a very fast memory. And its speed somewhat tries to match with the speed of the processor. You have to understand one thing, that the processor has the highest speed. No device can match the speed of the processor. But because the processor works at a very high speed, and your keyboard, the speed at which you are typing, the hard disk drive, all these are very slow devices as compared to the processor. So to match the processor, we need a device whose speed might not match the processor, but somewhat be closer to that. So RAM speed is it comes somewhat closer to the processor. So every program which has to execute on the processor, it has to be loaded into the RAM. Okay, if you want to work on Adobe Photoshop, so Photoshop is stored, it's already installed on your hard disk. That is, it is already stored on the secondary storage device. So your operating system will pick it up from your secondary storage device and it will bring it into the RAM. And then it will stay in the RAM till you are using it. It will execute there, and then once its execution is done, it will be removed from the RAM. Okay, depending upon how much space is left. RAM usually is limited on our systems. That is why you might have seen that the amount of space used for RAM is much lesser as compared to the amount of space used for your hard disk drive. Like for my laptop, which I am using, it has 8 GB RAM and it has 1 terabyte, that is 1 TB of your hard disk space, which equals 1024 GB of hard disk space, right? So RAM is comparatively costlier as compared to your hard disk drive, and it is much faster also. So it is a volatile memory. Coming to ROM, it is read-only memory. Now, yes.
Ma'am, what is the basic difference between dynamic RAM and static RAM?
We'll come to all that, dear. Don't just jump into all. This is just an introduction. Okay. Static RAM is used in cache memory, which can still store your data for a longer period of time without the need for refreshing it. But dynamic RAM needs refreshing multiple times in a second. Okay. It stores data in the form of an electric charge. It uses a kind of a device known as a flip-flop. Okay. Which can store exactly 1 bit at a time provided, electric charge is provided to it, and the charge is retained, the bit data is retained till the time the charge remains there, right? So dynamic RAM has to be refreshed multiple times. So dynamic RAM is used as RAM, okay, that is DRAM, and your static RAM is used as cache memory on our systems. Cache memory is the memory which stores the recently used or accessed applications, right? More detail we will study in the upcoming topics. So read-only memory is what? It is a type of a primary memory, but it stores data permanently. But it's much different as compared to your secondary storage device. In case of ROM, it means write once, read many. Means you write data once into it and then you read it multiple times. Normally, it is used for those devices where the program needs to remain fixed. Like, for example, the ROM BIOS program, which is used on your computer. Okay, ROM BIOS program is a special type of a program which is used for performing diagnostic check of your computer. When your computer first starts, the ROM BIOS program first checks whether all the resources of your computer, they are working properly or not. It performs a complete system diagnostic check, and then it loads the kernel of the operating system. Kernel, Kernel, kernel is the main part of the operating system. Okay, the core part of the operating system. So that is, until it is loaded, the ROM BIOS does the work of starting the computer. Similarly, ROM can also be used in embedded computers, which I have already taught you in class 9. You might have seen, might have studied in class 9th about embedded computers. Computers which are in the form of small micro-controlled devices, okay, where we have small printed circuit boards. On those printed circuit boards, you have chips attached, and those ROM chips already have pre-programmed instructions on them, how to operate that device, like washing machine. Now, washing machine will have a set method or a set way of working. Okay, you cannot change that because that program has been embedded into that device, into the microcontroller for washing machine by the manufacturer itself, right? Same way with the air conditioner, the TV remote which you use, the set-top box which you use, modem which you use. So all these devices which you encounter in your daily life, they all have pre-programmed instructions in the form of ROM. So ROM is what? It is a form of a memory which stores data permanently, which stores pre-programmed instructions permanently. And those instructions are coded by the manufacturer itself, right? So this is your memory unit, which consists of primary memory as well as secondary memory. So firstly, I would like to ask you, was this part clear to everybody? Basic computer organization about the entire CPU and the different units which it is connected to. Very good. Now we come to the next part, that is computers follow what? The IPO principle, that is input process output cycle. I use this example multiple times. Let's understand IPO cycle by this simple analogy, right? So you can see some ingredients over here, like it's very hot and humid weather right now. You have very sultry weather going on, so nothing works best than a full glass of chilled cold coffee, right? So what do you need? You will need some ingredients for it. So those ingredients work as the input. As you can see here, you put them in a blender. So blender becomes your processor, which processes all that, mixes all that, blends all that. Okay, because the processor is programmed for doing that. And then what you get, the output is cold coffee served. Okay, so in your daily life, you will find a lot of such examples of input, process, and output. Same way, I'll just wind up with this IPO cycle here. Now, talking about computers, you enter data on a daily basis about employees. You can see employee data here consisting of employee ID, last name, first name, gender, title, age, salary, everything. It goes into the computer processes that, summarizes that, and it gives us output in the form of reports, charts, graphs, histogram, etc. Right? So this is your IPO cycle: input, process, and output. So with this, I conclude today's class, students.